Right, we all ready?
Yep.
Do it.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's FYB Rugby Round Table. My name's Sean Phelan. I hope you're all well. Today we're going to have another of our club focus editions, and we're going to talk about a club near and dear to my heart. It's my club. It's Racal Decca RFC. So at the top you've got Robert Holmes, the chairman. He's now been on 3 times, so he'll get a hat-trick ball or something. 3 times in 30 odd episodes. It's not a bad rate. And then we've got our fixtures secretary and hooker extraordinaire, Harry Lowther, token Welshman. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
Hi, everybody.
Robert, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about the club, how you joined, and how long you've been playing.
Too long, to be brutally honest, to the last one, but I'll come back to that in a second. So the club has been around for 61 years now, or just about to be 62. Started in 1959 as a works team for Racal Decca. That was a large avionics, radar, record company, or various parts of were back in the 50s. Had a big sports club, like most big companies back then. All had their own sports ground and their bars and their affiliated clubs and various different sports that they took part in. So that's where it started from. And you could only play for the club if you was an employee of the business until mid 80s. In the late 60s, early 70s, there was a rash of redundancies, and most of the rugby team were unfortunately made redundant at the time, so they weren't allowed to play for the club anymore. So they then went out and formed another club, Tedder and Antlers, I believe, or so legend has it, or so we keep telling everybody. So it's on our website, so I hope it's right. But we're still followed by. We still have interactions on our social media, and we've had members of that squad come back for our 60th in 2019. So yeah, it must be true. Otherwise, they would have said it. They would have said something by now. So since then, it's just been a kind of come one, come all. The company is long since gone. It went in 99. The last parts of Racal Decca were bought out by a French company called Thalys, so the company disappeared. And over the last 2 decades, all of the other sports clubs have gone. The bowls club, they even had a yacht club and a shooting club. For some reason, the rugby pitch was next to the shooting alley. I can't help but think at some point that was a motivational point by the rugby captain at the time, to make sure that you kept on your toes. Otherwise, you'd get taken out by one of the marksmen with an air rifle. So they all the other Racal Decca teams went, and we're the last ones left. And I've been with the club since 2001. So I would have completed 20 seasons. I'm just about to hit 20 years in a couple of weeks. Like I say, my first game, we started a shooting alley down the side of the pitch. So I was standing on the sideline waiting to make my debut at the first game I rocked up at, and all I could hear was ping, ping, ping in the background. I asked one of the old heads who was there at the time, I said, "What's that noise?" He went, "Oh, that's the air rifles behind those trees over there. So when you get on, make sure you put plenty of energy, because they will pick you off." So that was it. I joined the club in 2001, just as the Racal Decca company name and sports ground all changed hands, and pretty much ever since then we've been playing our home games at Kingston University's Tolworth Court. Fantastic facilities and fantastic pitch ever since. So we still managed to go back to our spiritual home once a year for a testimonial, which was going to be mine this year, but the boat from last year the boat from last season didn't get his, so everything's been moved up one. So I live to fight another day before I become a testimonial recipient. But yeah, so that's the kind of history of the club, and in those 20 years, I've pretty much done most jobs behind the scenes: captain, treasurer, fixture secretary, and now chair. So it's I love it, to be honest. I absolutely love the kind of ins and outs of it all, and trying to keep us going, the little engine that could.
100%. 100%. And Harry, how did you get involved?
So I moved down this way 2014, I think. I got a job in Epsom, sort of November 2014, and then moved to Tolworth for like a flat share 2015. I think about March time 2015, and I had an Australian housemate, and I was like, "Oh, is there any local rugby clubs or anything down here?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I think the old guy across the road is a member of a rugby club or something." So sort of got introduced to him across the road. It's Pete Garrett, one of the sort of founding members of the club, one of the old guard. He puts me in touch with Woody. It's like, "Oh yeah, come down to training." We started pre-season training in the summer, blah blah blah. So me and Marty, my Australian housemate, rock up, and the end is sort of history. It's just started playing from there, and wow, it must be my 5th season now. But yeah, just sort of really enjoyed it straight from the off, because just a sort of nice and easy, relaxed sort of atmosphere, easy to get along with everyone. And my job, I kind of work evenings and stuff when I first started out, so there was no pressure of like being at training and all that sort of stuff. That ability to just sort of rock up on a Saturday, say hi to everyone, play a game, and have a couple of beers or whatever afterwards was ideal. And yeah, really enjoyed sort of social rugby sort of since.
So tell us about the team, Harry. We're quite unique, as if we've got one team. But yeah, chat about the team and who's involved and.
So I'm fixture secretary at the moment, so it's been quite an easy year for me. I've had next to nothing to do. Normally I'm scrambling around on a Wednesday, Thursday because someone's dropped out, and you're trying to find a team and drag a couple extra players along with Woody and Larry and Quincy. But it's been quite easy this year. But yeah, it's just a good mix of sort of ages, abilities, everything really. The club, you've got the amazing forwards that are, basically winning all the time. Me leading from the pack at hooker, and then you've got people like Woody at fly half dropping the ball all the time. No, it's a good mix. It's a good mix of old and young. We've got some few new youngsters coming through. Great bunch, loads of different abilities and stuff like that. But it's just to kind of look up and play sort of rugby. There's no great training park moves or anything like that. It's all fairly play what's in front of you and just enjoy it, and just put your body on the line for each other and for the badge. So it's quite good that way.
Just a quick name change there, gents, just to bring everybody who's watching this into, or for the listeners, when he mentioned Woody dropping the ball, yes, he was talking about me. So
and yes, it does happen quite often.
not often enough, unfortunately, because we can't seem to get our own ball back once it gets in there. Given that in the last probably 5 years, I spent about 50% of the time at either 1 or 3 trying to do it myself. It doesn't happen quite as often as it used to be fair. Because normally I'm standing next to you, H.
Yeah, exactly. You're normally on one of my shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah. So
probably at the bottom of the ruck, or at the bottom of the previous ruck, still there, breathing out of your arm. Just waiting for the play to come back to where I was originally.
Yeah, if you stand still long enough, it will end up back in front of you, on your plate.
It has to. So, how does the club attract new players? How were you both recruited, as such? But how does the club go about finding the new blood to keep the club going?
I was, I suppose, officially, I was recruited by your dad.
Yeah, so for context, my dad, again, a bit like Robert, and I guess myself a little bit, we've done every job going. We've been captains and chairmans and fixture secretaries and chief cook and bottle washer, I guess. And the reason I play is because I watched my dad growing up and wanted to do that. So yeah. So sorry, Rob.
Yeah, so it was actually your dad that I was at a party of my now stepdad's 40th party 20 years ago, and I was me and my now wife sort of rocked up to the party, and most of the Decca lads were there. Our oldest Ed ever, Cookie, who finished playing at the age of 67, was giving it large on the dance floor. It was one of the kind of first memories of all of the Decca lads, and I happened to be outside sharing a Marlboro Light with your dad and your uncle. And at the time, I was a very keen footballer and serving a 6-week ban, and so couldn't play on a Saturday afternoon. And basically got called out and was like, "Do you play rugby?" It's like, "Yeah, I played. I haven't played for a while, but yeah, I used to." "Well, what are you doing on Saturdays?" "Well, actually, I can't do anything for 6 weeks, or certainly not with a round ball, because I mean, otherwise I'll get bang in trouble. But yeah, I'll come and have a game." And that was it, really. I rocked up sort of 2 weeks later with a mate of mine, because he was the one who taught me how to throw a left hand that got me sent off in the first place. So I blamed him and brought him down with me. And that was it, really. We was off. I kind of never really went back to playing Saturday football from there on. Walked into a changing room literally walked in there with a mate of mine. The only person I really knew was the guy that I turned up with. Walked in, was made to feel both welcomed and ostracised for being a footballer in exactly the same time, in exactly the same manner, and with exactly equal amounts of I suppose respect and disrespect on both sides. One, that I was willing to put a shirt on, but two, that how dare I have ever kicked a football or seen a football. It was very different back then. I don't think turning up with a pair of gold Nike Louis Figo boots really helped. This was like I say, 2001. The average weight of our pack back then was kind of about 135 stone. They were all big. I mean, don't get me wrong, no one pushed us off it. We couldn't get around the park, but no one pushed us off it. Very much old school. You got guys in there that are polishing the white stripes out of their plain Adidas or white Nike ticks, colouring it in with a permanent marker. And I turn up in a pair of gold boots. And I just remember Paul Hemmings, who came up to me before the game, and the skipper at the time, Nobby, sort of, you started on the bench and you kind of, that's where everyone began. I just remember Paul coming up to me and said, I won't imitate his accent, but just came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder and looked down at my feet and went, "You better be good, son." And I was like, "I've not played senior rugby ever, so this is going to be fun." But I still managed to keep hold of those boots for the next couple of games. So clearly I did all right, because he didn't burn them or hide them or rip them apart. So that wasn't too bad. So I was, I suppose, effectively introduced by your dad at a party, and that's that kind of story of mates or people that you met. And we've dragged people in from the pub, to literally drag people in from the pub. We've had a couple of guys that we've gone to play for another club. We were short. They've played for us. They've ended up staying with us and never playing for another UK rugby club again. So it's all mates of mates and people we meet and kidnappings. And that's kind of, that was our recruitment policy for about the first 10 years I was with the club.
So what's the recruitment policy like these days, Harry?
Well, it's still a bit of haranguing people on the night out. We still quite often go out with Larry, the captain, and a few others, and we go out to pull, but not women, but for potential rugby players. That's anyone we think, oh, they might play rugby. Oh, have you ever played rugby? And we end up with a couple of phone numbers for rugby the next day, and then get a couple of people on. But we've tried quite a few things the last couple of years or so. Sort of Facebook campaigns and things like that have been quite useful. We've picked up a couple that way. We've even tried sort of like flyer in, but also going out fully kitted out as the squad whilst doing flyer in, so people see you and maybe pick up your numbers. But a lot of it still, I would think, is mates of mates and people you know. So like I was saying, I moved into the area. Tolworth is right by the ground. I say, I've played rugby since I was little. Since just finished, come out of uni and stopped playing for a year or so, looking to get back into rugby, and there it was. And what a great bunch of lads. I think that's the thing. If you can get anyone down to training or down to a game, they'll remember what rugby was, or they'll enjoy themselves. They'll like the lads, the group, the atmosphere, and just playing rugby just to enjoy it. No other real agenda. We're not a team that's looking to get promoted to the Premiership or anything else like that. It's we want to win every game, but ultimately it's about having fun. And I think people come along, enjoy that atmosphere, and like Woody says, might have met them at the pub and they come down. They might have played for someone else and they're helping us out for the day. And people tend to stick around, or they're a mate of someone and they come down on the off chance, and then they end up playing quite a few more games. But yeah, we're always trying to think of something new to try and recruit people, but it's a bit of a challenge for us because, as we sort of said, we were a one team side, so there's no Colts, there's no youth division or whatever bringing people through. I suppose we're waiting for your kids to grow up, Sean, and then we can have some more players. Yeah.
Well, I was reading today actually that positions 4 and 5 are the most valuable in world rugby. So actually, they're going to play professional and earn some money.
No, there you
go. In your house, that was always the case, though, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, that was, yeah. Well,
I remember the first time you got on a pitch. I think it was your dad's testimonial.
Yeah, so that would have been 2004, 2005.
Yeah, so you were what, 13, 14 years old?
13 or 14, yeah.
Yeah, 6'4". Not an exaggeration, 6'4".
No, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
What came onto the pitch in your dad's testimonial, and everyone was like, right, we've got a young lad on here, so if he gets the ball, we'll just go to touch. So just be mindful. I think you was on the pitch for about 4 minutes, and then one of our wingers just saw a big lump catch a ball and belted you. And literally everyone just went, oh no. And then I don't know what was more shocking, the look on your face as it happened, your dad's face as it happened, the face of everybody else, like what's going on, or Phil, who did it, who then got up and realised what it
Yeah, well, Rob's disappeared. Finished that story. Yeah, got whacked, completely whacked. I don't think it put me off though, because it's 15, 16 years later, and still here, still doing it.
Yeah,
probably not as much as would like to these days, but due to work and family and stuff like that. But I guess that's like anyone. But I love it, and I love the club. So how was lockdown for? Do you want to finish that story, Rob?
Sorry, I need to put another 50p in the meter. So I don't know what was what. I don't know where I got to. I don't know what was more concerning, the look on everyone's faces, or Phil, who was the culprit, who didn't realise that the fella that was taller than him that he just belted was effectively a child, who was in. I've never heard somebody shout the word sorry so clearly for a gum shield for probably about the next 10 minutes, as he kind of and to be fair to you kind of dusted it off the best you could, and kind of, I'm all right to carry on, and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I think he went off in just kind of regret and guilt, where you carried on. So yeah, sorry for cutting off mid-flow there.
That's all right, we can edit this out, it's fine, it's pre-recorded. So how difficult do you think it is for a club like ours that doesn't have, we don't have training facilities per se, we don't have a clubhouse per se, all we've got is a rugby pitch and a set of shirts. How difficult is it for us to keep people engaged, or even do recruitment?
I think it's quite difficult because, like you say, there's no hub, if you will, for people to go back to. So people might meet down the clubhouse for training or watch an international match or whatever. But I think we're quite good nowadays, especially with modern technology. I mean, through lockdown, for example, we've been doing little Zoom quizzes and just dropping everyone a message and things like that. We're always quite keen to keep in contact with the lads, do little things, meet up when we can, do sort of impromptu socials, or even if there's a few of you locally, because our membership's quite sort of spread out because we've all kind of come here from different areas. So we're not all local like in some other clubs. So you might have little pockets of people that all live together that might hang out, and you just try and keep the chat up, organise whatever you can. Watch Wales win the Six Nations. Anything.
That was a little while ago.
Yeah,
we don't do that often.
No. But yeah, I think you've just got to make a conscious effort to keep the chat up. Whether it WhatsApp, whether it be Facebook, giving people a actual old school phone call, dropping people a text, just making sure people are staying in contact, just keeping social with the guys, seeing what's going on. Yeah, I think we're quite good at that, but it is a bit more tricky, I think, without having that sort of HQ that everyone can sort of revolve around. But I think we're generally quite good as a membership and sort of committee, trying to always think about things, because you notice the impact on the field when we've had a couple of weeks where maybe a couple of lads have gone for a drink or done something after the game, or we've played a few games in a row. There is a bit of camaraderie there, a bit of gelling, a bit more social aspect, and you see it on the field. Everyone's just a bit more, I don't know, with it, a bit more together. So it does make a difference, and it is important to try and keep in contact with everyone and try and keep that aspect of it, in a normal year. But then, especially this year, with everything going on, we've made an extra effort, I think, just to check in with everyone, just to make sure everyone's doing well, because rugby's a fun game and everything, but at the other end of it, it is good for people's mental health. It's something that people get the chance to go outside, socialise with other people. A lot of people this year might have been indoors working from home for 9 months of the year, so that bit of training on Saturday is the only bit of contact they get with people, or do you know what I mean? That little message from your mates at the rugby club is the only bit that you get. So I think it's extra important this year. But yeah, I think we do what we can. But yeah.
Yeah, I think our unique selling point of being a one-team club that doesn't have all the kind of normal trappings of a clubhouse to maintain, and so on and so forth, and that attitude of we've got a core of players, and every year you have that same core, and fortunately, as one person drops out of those, somebody else kind of joins in. But our attitude is the kind of the Decca way, as we call it, is that you rock up on a Saturday afternoon, you're guaranteed 40 minutes or 80 minutes of rugby, and unless you specifically ask Dave Veland for 10 minutes at the end, you know what I mean? But the assumption is we need everybody that we can get there. The guarantee is you get 40 or 80 minutes. If you want less than that, you can ask for less than that. You better, historically, you better pick those dates specifically, because more often than not, that's not an option. But with that kind of attitude and that kind of loose attitude to, we're there for when people want to kind of pick us up and drop us off and dip in and out of rugby, which is probably 30 to 40% of our players during the course of the year, becomes really difficult in lockdown when you're trying to galvanise everybody together. We've been, specifically this year, we've been really fortunate that our coach and our president Matt Taylor, hello Matt, he's not been very well for the last couple of weeks, so I hope you're feeling better, was a rugby coach elsewhere at school, and his son has now got to the age where he can play senior rugby. So we've had a kind of influx of 8 or so of these young lads this year at training on a Saturday morning, Alexandra Park, Tolworth, as soon as we get back out of tiers 3 or 4 or whatever we are. Once we can move again, that's where we are. It's Alexandra Park, Saturday mornings, 10:45, Tolworth. We've had those guys that have come down that have really bolstered our numbers, but actually that kind of absence making the heart grow fonder for rugby during the course of lockdown has also meant that since we started this in the first weekend of August, and I think we had 17 or 18 sessions, over those 17 or 18 sessions, we'd had 23 guys that would have normally played for us outside of those additional 8. Now, don't get me wrong, if they all turned up on a Saturday afternoon for a game, that puts us at 31 players and we're banging trouble. But we also know that the nature of who we are as a club, that's not going to happen. But we're trying to make sure that when we haven't seen someone for 3 or 4 weeks, outside of the committee and within that group of guys that have been training, someone's picking up the message away from everybody else and just going, "How you doing?" You know, and that attitude has almost grown very deliberately to start with, but now is just part of us. It was always we've always had this thing of we've not been a cliquey club. You walk in a change room, you can see the people that have known each other for years. Like me and you, Sean, I've known you since literally you were a teenager. But it's only probably in the last sort of 10 years where we've become really good friends. Before then, but you know that sort of almost that you were at the club when I got there 20 years ago. So, but that's not cliquey at all. That's just the fact that we've got this ongoing relationship. You have someone like H comes in with his flatmate at the time, Martin, if you're watching or if you ever hear this, I wish you well. Absolutely fantastic clubman. Comes in, goes training, does his ACL, can't play rugby for 2 years, comes on a tour, gets given a dress on tour, spends the last never played a game, has never played a game. Not through lack of trying, not through lack of effort, not through lack of desire, but just through sheer bad fortune on his part. Comes on tour, absolute legend, wears a dress, goes down in the stories that we share for years. And we've got other guys that have done similar things that have kind of become a massive highlight during the course of our very tiny club, and we, for years spent time trying to actually get recognised as the smallest rugby club in the world, and I believe that we still are. And that uniqueness, like I say, can be both a blessing and as a curse. I do have to say that whilst we haven't got a traditional clubhouse, that we've been really fortunate over the last 20 years that we have fantastic facilities that we rent through Kingston University. And one of our biggest fears is because we've not won the relationship that we used to book with the same person for the best part of 20 years there. She's now retired. The fact that we've not been around and not been there to hopefully that relationship is still as strong as ever and will continue. But in addition to that, we've also picked up a very close association with a pub in Tolworth, who have been fantastic through the various different lockdowns of when they was open and when they were closed, and over the last couple of years. So the Castle pub in Tolworth, if they ever become a thing again, I'm sure we'll get down there. So we've been really fortunate that we've been able to forge relationships that we can take that kind of normal trappings of a clubhouse and a pitch and all that sort of stuff, do it our way, but have consistency of that for over a period of time.
No, 100%. It's what we've got is something special, and it's very unique, and wouldn't have it any other way. Just sort of touching on lockdown then and players. Have we had any players say that due to the pandemic or anything like that they're not going to come back and play? Because I think that was a big fear at the start that there was going to be this generation, sort of perhaps the older generation, that might decide that that's it. Have we had any sort of people that might have suggested that that's it? Which
we've had guys that have had to be careful. We've had guys that when training started again, would, because of their personal circumstances and because they live in houses with vulnerable people, parents, etc., that they couldn't come down to train. And I think initially there may have been some hesitance to kind of tell everybody what was going on, whereas actually having that information and having that spread meant that we could not only understand that we weren't going to lose this person for a long period of time, but also make sure that we made that slightly more effort of kind of checking in. We've had one guy who I've played with for the best part of 20 years who due to, I think the pandemic was the kind of nail in the coffin for his time in the UK, went back to South Africa. But I don't think we've had anybody that's kind of turned around and said, actually, I think better of it. I think there may have been some of that at the beginning, but because the gap was so long, it went from kind of, I'm really enjoying the fact that I don't hurt. I really quite like the fact that I can lift my head off the pillow on a Sunday morning. And that I'm not, when I take the kids down to the park, I literally can't keep up with my 5-year-old because I've just cut my hamstrings gone, or my calves gone, or my back's gone. To I really miss this. To then I've now got an outlet for it, and you walk onto a training paddock with 8 youngsters who all know each other but don't really know everybody else. But after a couple of weeks, I've kind of been enveloped into that kind of that club banter already. And you kind of get down there and you're like, there's 8 blokes who I don't know, but they seem to know everybody else. I feel like I'm missing out. So, you put a couple of runner sessions together. So I touch wood, hopefully, without the kind of natural sort of drop off that we would see anyway, through people relocating. We've had another guy that's relocated up north under cover of darkness. Yes, Jordan, we do know that you did that. The word has got out. We will find you. We just need someone. Your part, Paddy. We need someone with a Liam Neeson accent to get on the phone to him and just tell him that we're going to find him. But yeah, so like I say, relocations have happened. Now, have they been accelerated by the pandemic? Yes. I don't think we've lost anybody because they thought, actually, my life's a lot easier now because I can move. Because I also think that, speaking on personal experience, after a couple of months of lockdown, it's like, now I can't move again, and it's nothing to do with rugby. It's purely because I know where that cupboard is in my kitchen. All the good stuff's in.
Yeah, I think, like Woody said, I don't think we've had, like you say, anyone do that. But I think for me, it was the same as any other season. You finish your season in May or whatever, and first couple of weeks, you think, oh, this is great. Get up on a Sunday morning, like, oh, look at me, like moving around, able to move things about. But then this itch just starts building, sort of week by week, where you just miss rugby. And it's not necessarily like hitting someone or anything like that, but it's just like seeing the people, having like contact, just playing the game. It just grows. And by the time you get to August, September pre-season, you're raring to go again. And like Woody says, you're a bit slower, a bit unfit, carrying a couple of pounds. And I think lockdown just made that a more extreme version of that. That itch got really big, and you just wanted to, and you're stuck inside anyway. You can go for walks and runs and things like that. But I don't know about you guys, but for me, like, I can go on runs and stuff, but I just don't have the drive to run around a loop of a park and push myself. But if I'm chasing a rugby ball, then I'm quite happily run at it 100 miles an hour. And it was really great to start training again, get back to that, just being out about and seeing people again and having that contact and playing rugby again, really. So I think that's the thing. It's just, we're lucky that we're able to actually, it's one of the sports that, although it's been mainly affected by COVID, at least now we're able to actually get back to doing it and stuff, and doing back to what we love.
Definitely. Right, so last couple of questions then. So I want your favourite moments in a Decca Rugby shirt. We'll start with you, Harry.
That is a tough question. Give me a second. I just need to charge, so I'm just going to grab a charger. So if you go to Woody, then it gives me a couple of minutes to think, and I'll come back charged up.
we've been quite we've been quite fortunate actually that over the past sort of 20 years or so, there's been quite a few things that you wouldn't have expected to happen. We ran a competition back in 2015 where we did a World Cup in a day, the smallest rugby club World Cup, and we had sides that visited us from just down the road. Some local sides to Gloucestershire, to Cambridgeshire, all the way to Malta came over for the tournament, as well as from the south coast in our friends at St Paul's, and delivering that was amazing, and taking part in that day was fantastic, and I'm sure people who are familiar with Fill Your Boots know that this kind of the Fill Your Boots brainchild came out of off the back of that. In as much as 30 odd players available for Decca because we're playing in our own tournament, to 12 the following week, and then, like I say, that was the kind of brainchild that you kind of took on and run with it. But it was actually the build up to that. The build up to that tournament was there was ridiculously stupid, in the best possible way, highlights to that, whether it was us being on Rugby Tonight and getting interviewed on live TV about our event, launching the We Deal and Real campaign with Land Rover, and having a game against a side that that we were really familiar with, and having Clive Woodward as our coach for the day, and Johnny Wilkinson and Matt Gitto bringing me on a kicking tee, to in our changing rooms swept out by Brian Habana, and having Felipe Contepomi cutting origins for us. It's on YouTube, find it, it's amazing. And those kind of days where you just, and because I had quite a lot to do with the delivery of that, and actually the side that we played against, Stretman Coyne and Threes and Abdul, massive shout out to you guys as well, who I called up and rang about 2 months before that and said to them, look, we play you on Saturdays. At this weekend, we're not paying you Saturday, we're paying you on Sunday. I can't tell you where, what, how, who, but just be at our club at a time. You can bring 23 people. I can't tell you anything else about it. 46 fellas got onto 2 coaches, got driven to a rugby club out far away from where we normally play, and 45 of them didn't really know everything that was going to happen. Some people had to get told some parts, but just for me to sit back and to be able to watch guys that I played against for God knows how long at that point, and guys that I played with for 15 years at that point, kind of have that experience, and being able to be a part of being that delivered, were just when we're sitting back in the clubhouse, whilst your dad, again, Mick gets quite a few mentions on this, but while your dad was being referred to as Dad by Brad Thorne, who at that point was the most decorated rugby player in the world, whilst he's got his arm around your old man calling him Dad, and where have you been all my life, was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But to be able to have an impact or an input into delivering that for everybody else, don't get me wrong, I had my photos done with all of them as well, it was great. That is absolutely huge as a highlight. But as an actual Decca memory, I think being captain of one of the testimonial sides in 2009 when the club was 50 years old, and it was a testimonial for the club, and leading out the blue and whites on that day, and having we opened up our wall of honour for guys that hadn't had testimonials, or because that wasn't an initiative back then, and leading out the blue and whites on that day as a captain, in front of guys that I played with for years, in front of guys that played for the club that long before I was even around in any way, shape or form. From a Decca point of view, that was my Decca highlight. From a rugby point of view, the kind of mixing with the stars and having all the trimmings for one day would be my two.
Yeah, incredible memories. Harry, have you had time to think?
Yeah, that's just twigs actually. All that stuff from the smallest rugby World Cup was amazing. Yeah, that Land Rover day, with all those rugby stars playing and being on BT Sport Rugby Tonight and all that sort of stuff. And we've had a couple of our end of season awards Twickenham, they've been quite special as well. But for me, it's just a kind of singular moment. We were playing against Teddington Twos away, and I think Alan Parry, our number 8, made a break. I'm on his shoulder, as always. He never bloody passes to me. This time, he's actually passed it to me. I've caught it. And then, I maybe sidestep someone, and then I get tackled, and then I pass it to either you, Sean, or Paul. You were both playing second row that day, and I offload it to one of you guys, and then you offload it to either Paul or I can't remember if you went in or Paul went in for the try, but it just summed up Decca in one moment absolutely brilliantly. That we did. Someone made a little break. There was always someone on the shoulder. Offload, little offload, and then we go in, and it's one of those kind of, it felt like a full 15. Everyone had touched the ball kind of try, but it just, for me, it just kind of summed up how I see how we kind of play when we get our attacking game going. It is just someone makes a little break, someone on the shoulder, a couple of offloads, and all of a sudden you've scored like a special little try, and it's quite a nice team moment. So yeah, for me, that's the sort of Decca moment that I can pick out in a shirt.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember that day. I remember. I can't remember whether it was me that scored or Alan that scored, but yeah, it was pretty special. All right, and finally, then, gents, the last question, as we ask everyone, your hopes and your fears for grassroots rugby or the club in 2021.
So I guess. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah. Go.
I guess hopes and fears is I think probably everyone's probably said this, but I think it's around COVID and this season that I hope that we can get back to a lower tier where we can get back to training, back to seeing the lads, and hopefully playing some rugby again, getting some fitness back, and just looking forward to playing some sort of rugby, whatever form that may take. Currently looking at no scrums and no mauls, which will probably suit me as a sort of more mobile forward, but maybe not suit others. And then I guess not pointing any fingers. And I guess fears is that that we don't get back to rugby this year, or even if we do next year, that somehow the game's been affected. That a couple of people decide that that they don't want to play anymore, or we lose too many players. But to be honest, I'm more positive. I'm more hopeful thinking. Like Woody touched upon, we've got a few younger lads joining the club now. We're still seeing lads down at training. I've not seen a massive downturn in player numbers or anything like that. So I think when rugby does return, I think we'll have guys on the pitch. We'll get back to enjoying playing together and just having fun out there. But yeah, I think that's it at the moment. It's just trying to hopes and fears. But I suppose as a fixture secretary, my hope is that this continues and I never have to organise a fixture again. My fear is that rugby comes back and all of a sudden I have to do something.
And you, Rob?
Well, yeah, someone asked me this the other day, so I'll go back to that.
That was me.
It was you, yeah. I didn't know when that article was coming out on your website. I don't know whether to blow it as an exclusive or to keep your powder dry on that.
No, it's fine. Look, you say it.
No, I think, like I say, I think mine's with Harry very much the same thing about making sure that rugby's there. But actually, my concern is I've played more rugby than I'm going to play going forward. I'm at that point. I mean, I'm 44 now, so I haven't got another 20 years of doing this. As much as I would like to, I just don't think it's going to be there. So my hope is that once we do get back, that all the clubs that I played against in the last 2 decades are still there. Because, as I said in that article to you, there's guys that I've known for 20 years and I've played against for 20 years and I may not even know their first name and they may not even know mine. But I know that at the end of a game, we'll be in the bar and we'll have a drink, and across that 5 minutes, there'll be a little, there'll be a little catch up on a bit of news that we exchanged 2 or 3 years beforehand. And my hope is that as you get older and more ingrained into your club, the guys that you communicate with have a tendency to be more the linchpins of their clubs as well. So I hope that those guys are still around, because if those guys are still around, then it means that those clubs are still going. If those clubs are still going, it means that we've got an opposition. So as much as Harry's hope is that we can still play the game, we also need to have a hope that actually we've got people to play against. And my fear is that those people and those clubs aren't going to be there because they haven't, like us. We cut our cloth accordingly. We haven't got a clubhouse. We haven't got a pitch. I hope that our relationships are strong enough so they stay on. But you hear rumours of clubs that are struggling to pay their leases and so on and so forth. So my hope is those clubs are still there. My fear is that some of them won't be. And as much as we all bemoan the opposition, without that, we're just training. And it's fun when you've not done anything for a year, but it's now getting to stages. That's all we've done since August. I want an oppo. I want an opposition. I want a game against somebody else. I want a game against somebody that I know. I want a game against somebody I know that picks me up by the scruff of the neck from the bottom of a ruck or a maul, and then you turn around and immediately recognise them, and you know that you're going to go and have a chat in the bar in about an hour's time. So that's my hope. My fear is that those occurrences are going to become less and less.
Couldn't put it better myself, and it seems like a perfect way to end. Rob, Harry, just give the club one more shout out. Where can they find us on social media?
Comedy.
So we are at rdrfc.com on the Tinterweb, Racal Decca RFC on Facebook, Racal Decca Rugby on Instagram, Racal Decca RFC on Twitter. When we are able to, we shall be training on Saturday mornings in Alexandra Park in Tolworth, 10:45 meet, 11 a.m. start. And if pubs are open, it'll be then onto the Castle pub down the road for well-earned orange juice or Guinness or 7. So that's where we are. Fingers crossed, when we're playing matches again, we're back playing at Kingston University's Tolworth Court, or as our skipper calls it, Tolworth Arms Park, the Thunderdome. And there's not a piece of grass that I've missed more than that pitch as we go in on the right-hand side, because it is the best pitch us and anyone that we play in a season plays on, because the facilities, the match playing facilities are amazing. So that's rdrfc.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. No doubt by this time next week we'll be dancing on TikTok because we can't train anymore. So keep an eye out for us. We are everywhere. And if you are anything to do with grassroots rugby, I think that you will agree that the fill your boots evolution that we've seen over this summer, to go from a player exchange. What do you do when there's no rugby and there's no games to find players for? There's no clubs that are putting anything on that needs players. There's no players that are looking for clubs because you can't do it. What do? Well, I know what you do. You start a weekly round table that gets everybody from literally us. We are the bottom run of social rugby in England, right the way through to the very top, where you're on speed dial to the guy that runs community and grassroots rugby for the whole country, who I just watched on a webinar with Eddie Jones and Bill Sweeney the other day, talking in exactly the same.
On that, they didn't accept my request so I could watch it.
Oh,
that's another story.
Yeah. But so yeah, I think that if you're anything to do with grassroots rugby, and anything to do with amateur rugby in any way, shape or form, you know how hard Sean's been working over the last 6 to 9 months to make sure that this platform stays as relevant as possible, and that people like me, who talk far too much, and get really carried away in our subject matter, have an avenue for us to vent, as well as also meeting some fantastic people while we're doing it. Shout out to Ryan Bath, who I was on a call with, and Jess Hayden, who I was on a call with right at the start of all of this back in the rugby show back in July, I think that was. So
the Leachy from Staines.
Oh yes,
You can't forget.
No, you're right. I can't forget members of the band, because I'm sure we'll get back together at some point. Yes, Leachy from Staines, because he's only just down the road from us as well. So, Sean, what you've done over the last 6 to 9 months has been amazing to keep the focus and to keep us all together, and to actually make sure that we are getting information right from the very top, from the horse's mouth. That is phenomenal. So, cheers to you, sir.
You're welcome. If I had a drink, I'd cheers back. Yeah. But it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. I love doing it, and I love the sport. So yeah, we'll keep going, and hopefully these are still useful to people. And for as long as that is still relevant, and people still want to hear us and watch us and get involved, and we keep doing it. So there's plenty more to come. We've got some ideas to. It's been tough, but we've got some ideas that can be revealed very shortly once I've finished making them all. And but yeah, it is what it is. It's a crap time for everybody, and hopefully these are helping in keep people interested in rugby, because without interest we haven't got a game. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Thank you to you, Rob. Thank you to you, Harry, for joining me tonight. And don't forget to sort of like and share all this, and download the podcast, and leave us a nice review on iTunes. That'd be really, really appreciative. And obviously, Rugby Store. Go to rugbystore.co.uk. Use the promo code FYB Pod. And we've got a big pot of stuff that we want to give to some clubs. So again, that will be down the line. But thank you all for watching. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Cheers, Sean.